Alexa, play Imagine Dragons.
Okay.
With Amazon Music, a voice is all you need. Get access to over 50 million songs. Download the Amazon Music app today.
TV party tonight! TV party tonight! TV party tonight! TV party tonight! We're gonna have a TV party tonight! Alright! We're gonna have a TV party, alright! Tonight! We've got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews. Everybody's gonna hang out here tonight! Alright! We'll pass out on the couch! Alright! Tonight! We got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews. Don't talk about anything else. We don't wanna know. We're dedicated to our favorite shows.
And tonight, some would say our favorite show is Castlevania, brought to you by the good people at Netflix and Konami. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Rattledge. And tonight, I'm joined by a panel of experts on the subject. Some of them might have even watched the entire series so far. First, we have from Damn You Hollywood if she could, and the 411 Ground and Pound MMA show, Mr. Robert Winfrey. How do you do, sir?
Not too bad. Watch the Castlevania series. It cheers you up. It's a bright, happy type of show.
Terrific. And joining us from the Screaming Boy podcast, also often a panelist on the Source Material podcast, and a pretty cool fruit who really knows where his towel's at, Mr. Ronnie Adams. How do you do, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm all right. So, a couple of weeks back, we did a Metal Hammer of Doom, where it was back in October, as a matter of fact. We did a Metal Hammer of Doom for the new Power Glove album, and we had Sean Garmer on. And Sean Garmer, we were talking about Castlevania because that was one of the covers, and he had suggested talking about the Castlevania show on Netflix, and that everyone had thought it was the bee's knees, and he's not wrong about that. Apparently, it's one of the more popular shows original shows on Netflix. We attempted to talk about it once. Nobody was prepared, so we rescheduled it to tonight. Well, unfortunately, we can't find Sean. Sean's in an underground bunker somewhere where we can't get to him. So he will not be joining us, at least for the time being. And Jesse had to do his son's book report for him. So he's not available tonight. But I have you two, and that's plenty. So are we ready to talk some Castlevania?
Sure.
I've heard it said that you should never tell people what they could be, what they're missing, what should have been there, what should have been on the plate, so to speak. You just dumped a whole lot of oh man, we could have had these three other people and it would have been insightful and interesting, and they're clearly passionate about this material, and instead you just get these two schlubs.
Well, in defense of that, I'm honest. We had the debate over whether or not we should even do the show tonight, since Sean was sort of the impetus to this, and we can't find him. It's like, well, should we just do it or should we just mothball it? I'm such a whore for content, and I'm like, let's do the show anyway, even though I'm like, meh about the entire series myself. First, let me ask you guys a question, and it came up on the Power Glove podcast. Did either one of you actually play the Castlevania games that this was based on? And to be specific, we're talking about Castlevania III, Dracula's Curse, from 1989, and Castlevania, The Curse of Darkness, from 2005. Did either one of you play that, Robert, first?
No.
You didn't play either one?
Nope. I have played precisely one Castlevania game all the way through.
Okay.
And it's the least Castlevania game of them all. It was Lords of Shadow.
Terrific. How about you, Ronnie?
I know I played the one in 2005, and I'm pretty sure I played the other one.
Okay. So can you tell me what exactly are the similarities, if any, between the series and the two games? Like, do you play as the Belmont? Do you play as Dracula? Do you play as a Pokemon? I don't understand. What happens here?
Mark, I remember from the games, there was a whip and vampires.
Okay.
I can kind of help you with this, Mark, if you'd like.
I would like... Were you just playing as a whip? Were you just like an animated whip? What happens here? I don't understand.
Me recall a game I played 13 years ago.
Hey, listen, I could tell you in detail how Pitfall goes. I remember every detail of that game.
Mark, Pitfall, there's not much to it.
Are you telling me Castlevania?
Pits.
Are you telling me Castlevania is slightly? Well, I mean, I could also tell you about Pitfall 2. That was really complicated.
You run and you jump over more pits.
It was more complicated than all of that. But go ahead, Robert Winfrey, educate me on the Castlevania.
All right. Again, I am not a scholar of this. I've done some research because I knew we were doing this show. So this is based on my general proximity to the video gaming community more than anything firsthand.
What were you saying? Ronnie was trying to talk over you. What were you saying, Ronnie?
I'm sorry. I said you're already worlds ahead of me if you did research on the games that they correlate to the show.
Or finishing the series, whatever.
You know what? They didn't need to know that.
Go ahead, Robert.
Castlevania III is, if memory serves, the first time they do let you switch characters. Depending on the... it had some dynamic pathing you could take through the overworld map that would determine which characters you encountered, which ones you could recruit, which ones you could switch to. The previous two were just essentially 2D platformers with some really awesome music, occasionally decent writing, and, it's an NES game. And look, there's some nostalgia for them, but let's not be wowed by technical brilliance here.
Okay.
So yeah, 3 you started as Trevor, you could switch to Sypha, the sorceress who you'd encounter on one path. There was a thief you'd encounter on another. You could encounter Alucard. And you didn't have it wasn't multiple characters at the same time, but but each one of them had different abilities, and you could then cycle between them, or you change if you wanted, depending on which one you wanted to use. I think for speedrunning, Sypha is the best, because she is the fastest of them, but I might be mistaken about that. But yeah, again, that was one of the ones that let you cycle through characters who you could recruit, who you could bring with you. Again, and I really hope I'm not making an ass of myself and confusing it with a different entry into the franchise. This is either part of this is off the top of my head, part of this is stuff I can frantically Google while we're sitting here. So, don't yell at me too much, people.
Listen, you already know more than I do. Now, again, I wasn't even going to watch the thing until Sean hard sold it, to me. So, and I've watched the whole thing, and we'll talk about my thoughts on it in just a moment. But you guys were all very excited for this. You were like, "Oh my god!" Like Castlevania, and pants were coming off, and the room got wet, and it was just ridiculous. And so, can someone kind of bridge the gap for me? What is it about? In the immortal words of Bill Cosby, I'm going to paraphrase here. What is it about Castlevania that makes it so wonderful that you would want to waste an hour talking about it on this podcast? I'll take anyone answering that question. Just shout.
You're going in turns earlier.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead and go first, Ronnie. I already talked a bit. So
Well, Castlevania is it's an iconic game that anybody, growing up around the time that I did, or a little bit later, I mean, you remember it, it's nostalgic, and Netflix is more hit than miss with a lot of stuff they do. So it was exciting to see something that could be really good with these characters and storylines that I was familiar with when I was when I was younger.
In general, are you into Dracula and vampires and shit?
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, I'm not like going to vampire bars or anything like that, my off time, but
Not a fixture of the local goth scene.
No, you could say that I'm not.
You don't roll up to the club with your fangs and your ruffled shirt.
Well, let's not go too far, but I'm a fan. I've read the actual novel Dracula. I played Vampire the Masquerade, the RPG, stuff like that, and I'm a fan of that lore. So,
did you used to read the Ravenloft books from Dungeons and Dragons?
Yes, actually, I did.
I read exactly one of those books. I read the one about Lord Soth. I love that character. I was obsessed with him for a while.
I was more of a fan of Forgotten Realms, but I did read the Ravenloft because it came highly recommended from my circle of nerd friends.
What about you, Winfrey? What is your where does your love from Castlevania come from that you wanted to talk about it tonight? And then are you a fan of the vampire lore?
I'm not a fan. I can't. It's one of those things where the utilization of the word is altered so much. I used to say, yeah, I'm kind of a fan, and then I started seeing people who were like, no. Clearly, I can become a vampire, and I must dress up. And there was, LARPing, and just like, okay, you know what? My interest in this is vague and distant compared to your obsession, and I will now categorize myself as such.
Okay.
No, I read Dracula when I was in junior high, I think. Loved it to death. I've got a really nice illustrated copy that was given to me for Christmas last year. I find it interesting. I'm a fan of most things horror related. That's always gonna, tickle my fancy, so to speak. Castlevania itself, again, I'm not the biggest fan of. I never really got into it. I'm not the biggest fan of 2D platformers in general, but I saw a lot of people play through it. I have a deep respect for it. The game is full of some really great imagery and artwork. Almost all of the games. I should appropriately qualify that. And again, it's more the atmosphere and the visuals that go along with that from a gaming standpoint, because again, especially in the early days of gaming, story was your princess is in another castle. So I'm not the biggest fan, but I'm kind of a horror geek. Again, not the nerdiest of horror nerds, but I'm up there. I enjoy things that are, bloody and interesting, and I'm loosely familiar with the property, so when I saw that Netflix adapted, I'll give it a shot. And then after the first episode, ooh, yay, more. Then I realized, oh no, there's only 4. Well, doesn't that just suck?
Suck, vampires.
All right, so I never played the game. I didn't even own a Nintendo growing up. I went right to Sega and then PlayStation. Didn't go past PlayStation 1, though, just FYI. So like I said, never played the Castlevania series, and as we all know, when it comes to horror, I'm a big pansy wimp. So, not a huge fan of Dracula. I'm not really a huge fan of any of the horror, the classic horror monsters. It's just not my thing. But when something comes highly recommended or poorly recommended, I'm, again, whore for content. I will always give something a try. I have thick enough skin, and I am brave enough to at least try something that somebody recommends to me. And more often than not, I end up liking it. Shit, that's how I ended up watching Breaking Bad. So, that being said, I watched I watched the first season of Castlevania, and I like the concept. I like the idea that that Dracula possesses scientific knowledge that this woman was after, and she wants to become a doctor and all of that, and so she goes to Dracula, and for all of her knowledge, for all of her helping of the people, she's killed, and Dracula just loses his patience with humanity and decides it's got to be war. And then you have sort of the classic D&D thing of you have a small band of people who are on a mission to stop the bad guy, which is essentially season 2. So, from a concept point of view, I actually did enjoy the Castlevania series. I mean, it's not my favorite thing I've ever seen, but I at least liked the setup and the plot. My first question to you guys, and I'll tell you one of the things that just sort of irked me about it. I get that the foil here, the setup for this, and it almost has to be, that the church is the bad guy. But did you think that maybe they overdid it with this series about just how evil they made, the bishops and the Catholic Church? Ronnie, I'll go to you first, because I'm not the most religious person, and I certainly don't hold a lot of water for the Catholic Church. But it kind of bothered me that went a little crazy with how evil they made them.
The church in a lot of these is your perfect scapegoat. I mean, that's about the only thing I can really say, because to a lot of people it represents what's the word I'm looking for?
Oppression?
Yeah, oppression. What is it? I'm sorry, my water bottle.
Corruption, abuse of power.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm sorry, guys.
It's all right. That's what I'm here for. Yeah. I have to fill in Mark's vocabulary half the time too. It's all right.
But it represents corruption, greed. Everything bad. It happens, in the church, and especially if some of your characters in it are going to be, quote unquote, the undead, the unholy undead. So it's always been like that in these kinds of stories. You
tend to get irked by some of the modern day interpretations of the church. I know you and I mean I've joked on the Metal Hammer of Doom, and you've sort of had to roll your eyes at me, which I perfectly understand. Were you at all annoyed at this at any point, or did you just kind of go, yeah, no, it's part of the story? There's good and there's bad in the church. This is just a story. This is one of those stories where the church is just all bad.
Yeah, I came to expect it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like this, so it wasn't really so much of an annoyance as just a eye roll and roll with the punches.
Robert Winfrey, the church, the metal church. No, wrong show. Church. What are your thoughts here?
I mean, again, I kind of get where Ronnie's coming from, and I expected it. At the same time, it's just kind of... Normally when they do this, they have, the bishop or the cardinal, and clearly that by ascending to this level of power, this person has become corrupted. But they always tried to have, in a lot of very similar stories to this one, they try to have someone there who is representative of the good of that a religious institution will bring, and they completely decide to do away with that in favor of the wisdom of the wandering pagan nomads.
Yeah.
Did they, and I'm not going to lie, there were parts of this that I nodded off during. Big surprise. Did they ever just categorically state out loud why the bishop had a hard-on for, I think her name is Lisa?
No, he just generally was like that. I mean, she wasn't the first accused witch that he'd burned. It was someone threatening the church's, by extension, his power and authority, and he wanted them done away with.
Yeah.
Okay. This wasn't a play for land. Lisa Tepps. This wasn't a play for land or anything. This wasn't, she had offended him in some way. He found out there was a witch in town and she had to go.
Yep.
Okay. Let's turn things around here. We have in the first season, we meet Richard Armitage's character, Trevor Belmont. What did you think of Armitage's portrayal of Belmont Winfrey? Did you enjoy him? Did you have any issues with the character or characterization?
No, not really. I mean, you can't just. Again, with reference to the source material, you can't just throw someone in and have them be heroic all of a sudden. It's relatively poor storytelling. It works for video games because you want to do the things and play the game rather than watch someone's character arc. So starting him off as kind of a drunkard who's not really down with his family's legacy and oh god, we've dedicated our time and our energy and our lives to protecting these people, and look at them, they don't deserve it. Nuts to them, nuts to this. Dracula's going to wipe them all out, let him have them. And then he slowly comes around through finding good people, and again, it's relatively well-trod material, but if you're introducing him and you want to give him reasons for why he's doing what he's doing, him kind of, owing the elder of that little group and then deciding to try and rescue his granddaughter and then kind of getting the hots for her because she's an attractive woman, and
by the end of that,
seeing all the suffering in the world,
I was going to say, by the end of that,
deciding to take up the cause of his family again. Yeah, sure.
By the end of that series, Sypha totally wanted his penis. He may have been attracted to her, but she seemed to be coming on to him more than anything else. I don't know. That was my interpretation. I was like, she's into him. She totally is. I feel like he could have just kind of moved on and gone and found other adventures, but she was. I wouldn't go as far as saying she was in love, but she was definitely in lust.
Yeah, again, by the end, that's where they arrive at, but if we're just talking about season 1.
Okay, well, we're kind of bouncing. What about you, Ronnie? What's your thought? Personally, every time I heard Richard Armitage to say a line, I kept waiting for him to end it with, I'm the only one. All of last night, I binge-watched a bunch of it, and I just kept thinking of his lines from The Hobbit, but there's one, I have the only right. I wanted him to end every line that way. Yes, I could not get it out of my head that he was Thorin Oakenshield.
Yeah, I thought he did a good job. As far as the characterization, everybody loves a good redemption story, a broken hero. A phoenix rising from the ashes or whatever. But it's definitely not the worst voice acting I've ever heard. It's actually quite good. I thought the portrayal of the character, his portrayal was actually pretty good.
It's not even the worst voice acting in this series.
No,
which we'll get to.
So another character who we meet at the end of season 1, all 4 episodes of it, and is a big part of season 2, is of course Dracula's son, who is a hamper. What? It's spelled D.
Why? Why, Mark? Why would you do that?
I honestly have been waiting to make that joke all day. I saw it in the wiki and I'm just like, I'm sure it's not pronounced hamper, but that's totally what I'm going with until somebody corrects me. So why is he a place to put clothing? What is a hamper?
Oh God, I want to hurt you.
Oh wow. That definitely escalated. It was...
I mean, look, I was prepared to go with you mispronouncing Tepesh all night.
Mm-hmm.
But not hamper.
You're almost as bad as Chris with the Japanese wrestlers' names. You do realize this, right?
Oh, I do try. So how is it really pronounced, and what is it?
Dampier.
Okay. So what is... What is a Dom Perignon? Exactly.
I knew you were going to... Isn't it crazy that I knew that's exactly the joke you were going to make?
I mean, you all have been working together for quite a while.
I was going to say, at this point, if you don't know my sense of humor or lack thereof.
Don Pierre is half vampire, half mortal.
Okay.
In this instance, born from their union. I mean, I suppose technically Blade like kind of falls loosely into that same category because that's a character I know you're actually familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
He's a daywalker. Sorry.
Similar again. The whole half vampire thing can vary as necessary by the story from world to world, from reality to reality, whatever the author wants it to do. Mm-hmm. Alucard in this instance is, again, he's Dracula's son, just from his marriage to Lisa.
I like how Alucard is Dracula backwards, by the way.
I mean, cutting edge.
Very imaginative.
Wow, Mark.
I really want you to not have known that, Winfrey. And he just dropped like a truth bomb on you.
Of course I knew that.
Anyone
with half a...
Well, that's the thing. I'm not saying it like, hey guys, mystery of the deep here. Alucard is Dracula backwards. I was just saying how I like the fact that that's what they went with. They're like, what should we name this guy? Steve? No. Should we name him Jeff? No. How about Dracula Jr.? No. But I like where you're going with this. How about Dracula backwards?
You do realize you are now Eric Young, right?
It's like...
It's Relic, that's killer spelled backwards.
It's almost like that character was born of a drunken bet. Bet you won't name him Dracula backwards, and you're like, hold my beer. I'm gonna write it in.
I'm gonna invent a hamper. I'm gonna name him Dracula backwards. I'm gonna call him Adrian backwards Dracula Tepes, the hamper of Dracula.
Yeah, we're not rednecks here at all.
Winfrey's seething right now.
Winfrey's like, I should have told him, let's not bother with this. Okay.
Alucard I don't remember the actual genesis of Alucard as a character, because I want to say he existed prior to the Castlevania game series, but I can't remember exactly where it comes from. I mean, he's been used plenty of times across various media over the years, or just the name Alucard. I mean, my first real encounter with the name Alucard came from the Hellsing anime. And in that case, it is just literally Dracula, who just goes by Alucard.
Isn't the whole character of Dracula like a myth that goes back to Romanian legend? And there happened to be.
Do I seriously have to recount the actual legend of Dracula? Because I will.
Yeah, if you can do it in 50 words or less. But if I remember, I want to see if I got this right though. There was some tragedy that happened in Romania, and the myth is that there's this magical creature who bites people on the necks, and he's a vampire and all of that. But there was actually like some real disease or something that got out around that time. And go ahead, what's the actual legend of Dracula?
Okay, there's two major parts to this. One, when we talk about most of the time when you talk about vampirism as folklore, it's in reference to tuberculosis.
Right. I knew I was on the right page somewhere. The book may have been upside down, but I knew I was on the right page.
Because, again, tuberculosis, for those of you who don't know, if you ever listen to old stories or read stuff that is written in the prose of, say, the 18th or 17th centuries, they have a disease they call consumption. It's tuberculosis. They call it consumption because it literally seems to consume you from the inside out. Now, if you're superstitious...
the consumption. Sorry, I'm going back to, Old West.
Yeah, no. Again, if you died of consumption, it was tuberculosis. It's a terrible... I mean, it's still a terrible disease. It'll still kill you if it's not treated properly.
Yes, if you work in some sort of incarceration facility, they are mad about preventing tuberculosis.
Mark, do you work in some sort of incarceration facility?
Maybe.
Anyway, so it's a joke. We all know Mark works in a jail.
Did we?
Anyway, so a lot of the myths and superstitions around vampirism come from trying to stem consumption, the tide of consumption, and of course people weren't properly embalmed, so if you dug up a corpse, there was bloating that would occur. It looked like blood would come from the mouth because it coagulates tighter in and then expands, and it just they're drinking blood, and that's why you're getting sick. Then you stake them through the heart to pin them to the ground so they can't get up. Was a lot more of the logic there. But the specifics around Dracula tend to follow that he is based on Vlad Tepes, who was the son of a very, very brutal warlord in Wallachia, which is in Transylvania, which is technically in Wallachia, which is now in modern day Romania. I can't remember the specific relationship between the two countries.
I'm part Romanian.
Who was a pretty brutal. Again, his son was a very brutal warlord, but Wallachia was under the dominion of the Ottoman Empire at the time because the Ottoman Empire was rather large. Vlad Dracula, who was the name Dracula actually comes because his father was, I forget his father's first name. He might have been, because they were royalty, it might have been Vlad Dragul, and Dragul means dragon because he was, again, he earned that nickname. Dracula is son of the dragon.
And he goes on to fight Michael P. Jordan in Russia, if I remember correctly.
Oh, God, why do you do this? Anyway, he actually fought off a significant portion of the Ottoman Empire. He was revered as a hero in that part of the world for a reason, because he actually threw off the yoke of the foreign oppressors. He just did it through unbelievably brutal means. He actually, one of the famous stories about him is that, he would stake his enemies. You get these huge forests of bodies that he would just impale them. He also did that to his own people. And there were quite a few different conquering forces or marauding forces that came through, saw the bodies of this guy's own people impaled on wooden stakes, strung up along the road, and just kind of went, you know what? Let's just not. There was, I can't remember if it was the Romans or if it was Attila. Was it Attila or was it Genghis Khan? This is a somewhat apocryphal story anyway. But that this marauding force of well-known conquerors came to the borders of Transylvania, saw this forest of bodies, and kind of went, you know what? I think we're going to pass on this. We'll just go around. So, and he largely became associated with vampirism, mainly due to Bram Stoker, who took that historical figure, married it with a lot of the myths that floated around about vampires, and created the character of Dracula as we tend to know him today.
Well, the thing about it is, I've always wondered, I don't know if you know anything about this, Winfrey, but there is a legit allergy to sunlight. And is that where, I wonder if that's where they got the whole mythos of vampires can't go in the sun. Because
part of it, there's so much different elements of folklore that go into what makes up vampires. Yeah, there are people who are, either straight up allergic to it, to lights of various sources. Some people are very allergic to artificial light. It gives them horrible rashes.
Well,
there's that. There's, of course, the religious and mystical elements of the sun being, good and purifying, and scary things living in the dark rather than in the light. There's a few different episodes. I'm going to plug something else here that you should all be listening to if you can, but the Lore podcast has a few different episodes on vampirism and how we got here, a few different cultures and their different takes on them that are really worth your time listening to.
Cool. So, to round this back to our discussion of Castlevania, Ronnie, do you recall, or Winfrey, if it's in Season 2, what exactly his falling out or gripe is with Dracula in particular? Because he joins the side of Trevor Belmont and Sypha to take down his father. but I didn't get a sense as to what his issue was exactly. Ronnie, any idea?
I'm going to let Winfrey take this one right now.
In the case of Alucard, he just doesn't think humanity should be wiped out. He thinks his father has gone off the deep end.
Okay.
I was going to say that, but I was afraid I was wrong.
No, it's never like he doesn't hate his father. He doesn't. It's nothing like that. It's just his father's reaction to the death of his wife is, "That's it. I've had it with you people, all of you. You're all going to die now." And Alucard kind of goes, "No, that's an overreaction, Dad."
Maybe not kill all the people.
And I can't go along with this. I'm going to have to stop you because you are going into horribly evil territory. And his father, who has gone off the deep end, goes, "You shall not stop me," and locks him away gives him a beating, as you are wont to give your son, and then locks him away,
like you do,
and until he is, and until they find him in episode 4 of season 1.
Yeah.
All of our jokes. I'm afraid that we're going to get somebody called on Mark.
They can come and they can inspect my son. There are no bruises on his body that would relate to child abuse. I make sure of that.
I'll beat him with a sack of oranges so it don't bruise.
All right.
That's only partially true. They do still leave marks.
Yes, but see, I worked for Child Protective Services for a year or so, and it's not that you can't have marks or bruises; it's that the marks or bruises can't belie child abuse. So it's natural for a 4-year-old to run into walls or scrape knees or whatever. So when you have those, it's like, okay, well that's just growing pains. But if you can actually see like bruises at the top of the arm from being grabbed, that would constitute abuse. If you're talking about bruises to like the cheeks or the chin from being slapped, that would constitute abuse.
For a podcast about a horror TV show, we've gone to an even darker place. And I think we need to stop.
I'm just wondering if there's anyone listening to this is just like I tuned in because I wanted to hear what they thought about Castlevania, but have you heard about some tips about beating children that are really useful?
Right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, we don't need to put this information out there.
Further proof that none of us will ever become elected officials.
No, I couldn't be an elected dog catcher. Ronnie knows that from source material.
And I at one time I wanted to go into like ministry or something, but if they catch source material, I'm not ever.
My counter argument to that would just be, what? If I'm doing this on a podcast out for public consumption, where literally anyone with an internet connection can find it, basically the worst of me. If this is the worst of me, you should just take me. You should be pretty happy.
That's very true. Very true.
Right, so we've only got a few more minutes left before I'm going to call it for the night. I'm going to pitch it over to you, Ronnie. Favorite parts of what you saw, burning desires, things you want to talk about. If you want to talk more about hampers or steps, that's fine. I want to see what it's gonna take for Robert Winfrey to have a fucking stroke on one of these podcasts with me. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Mark, we have a whole gimmick on Damn You Hollywood designed to give me a stroke. If that can't do it, your abuse of the English language or English adjacent languages is not going to do it.
Ronnie, burning desires, things you enjoyed, things you want to talk about, things you didn't enjoy. Go.
I've honestly enjoyed the entire series because the only time I've seen a Belmont character come to life was in the old Captain N cartoon. And he was kind of a douche in that. Is anybody familiar with Captain N?
I mean, I know what it is, but I've never watched it.
I can't say that I am.
Wow. I have so much to educate you on. Well, I'm not going to go into Captain N because we've gone to a lot of places in this, and that is not one I'm prepared to go to right now. But apparently, striking your child just right is. But,
I live to educate.
But I've completely enjoyed the entire series. What I've seen of it, not what I've seen of it. I've enjoyed what I've seen. Burning Desires, a little more character development.
Anyone in particular?
I just want to see. I would like to see I can't even say it. I'd like to see backwards Dracula.
Alucard.
Alucard.
You want to? Yeah, let's talk to me more about Alucard.
Flesh, not so much fleshed out and more, but I would like to. I just want to see him. Really, I mean, because vaguely he was in the old games, so I just kind of want to see more of him.
He's the character you play in Symphony of Night, if memory serves.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Well, it looks like season 3, which they've already ordered. It looks like Carmilla and her new pet. Was it Hector? Yeah, Hector.
Was it Hector or Isaac? Because Isaac was the black guy. So yeah, Hector.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yes, Carmilla and her pet Hector, her pet boy Hector, are probably going to be the big bads for season 3. Which does Alucard, show back up again to help out with that, something as he. It was a sort of a personal thing with Dracula. Dad must be stopped, especially after he locked me in the closet. And I'm not, do you think he comes back to fight against her as well? Is he so easily recruitable for yet another vampire war?
At some point, yes. He'll probably do the heroic entrance near the end to be the guy. He'll do the quasi Deus Ex Machina thing where they approach him early and he can't for whatever reason. Either he's guarding the castle and doesn't want to leave it unattended, or he just doesn't care, or he's wallowing in grief. Because, killing your father does a number on you. It was one of my favorite moments, actually, at the end of the second season when they are successful. And he just kind of like, oh, okay, I'm going to die now. I don't see I've fulfilled my purpose. I don't really see the point in going on. And Trevor kind of uses his intellect and his curiosity and convinces him to stick around, but he's still overcome with grief at the end because of everything that he has lost.
Anything else, Ronnie?
No, I'm good. I will let the better speakers on this take over.
Floor is yours, Winfrey.
Okay, let me think. I like Peter Stormare generally, but man, I don't know what to say about him here.
What's your issue specifically?
Well, he voiced the heck was that character's name?
Was he a hamper?
Godbrand.
Oh
No,
yeah.
the like Celtic one.
Yeah, no, I know who you're talking about, and it's just like what a waste of a character he was. Like, I get that he's kind of there to be like, why do you like the humans so much and not as vampires? But I was not unhappy when somebody just took him out and was done with him.
Yeah, me neither. I really liked. I like the art style generally in this. They do a good job of conveying horror and gothic architecture and presenting you with a world to really kind of get involved in. I was a fan of how they handled all of that. There's some really awesome animation sequences in this, especially their last fight with Dracula in what was it, episode 7 of season 2, when the three of them try to take him on, and that's a really, really wonderful sequence. Again, this might sound a little weird because I'm, me. But there was something rather poignant about Dracula at the end of, again, this is episode 7, when he's been kind of beaten down, but he still could take these people. It's pretty clear. And he's blasted Trevor and Sci-Fi nearly into oblivion, and he's about to choke the life out of Alucard, and just looking around, and they wind up in Alucard's old room, and just looking around, and he is suddenly again, and he's the one who at this time kind of, is shaken from his murderous rampage by, dear God, I'm killing my son.
Right.
And I mean, again, not to bring this up, but it was a much better execution of the "why did you say that name" meme. So again, there's a lot of tragedy that is at play in this, which is good because that's the type of stories they're telling. There needs to be those tragic elements. Again, I liked a lot of the animation style. I was fond of. There were some really cool battles. Again, on the whole, very much enjoyed it, and very curious about Season 3, when, again, you have Carmilla, who is manipulating and, enslaving Hector. I'm not sure how that's going to go. And then you got Isaac out there wandering the desert, building his own army of the undead. So there's some stuff they can still play around with, and that includes, I imagine, Dracula's inevitable return, because he always does, in one sense or another.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed the subplot of Hector's slow corruption by Carmilla, and how she turns on him at the end. I actually really enjoyed Carmilla as a character. That she comes in and she's poking just the right bears at just the right times, and the girl portraying her, Jamie Murray, I think she has the bit with the magic spell that stops the castle from moving, and she's like, "What the fuck was that?" I actually had a big laugh at. I just got a message from Cooper saying he's at work, so he couldn't record with us anyway. All right. That being said, I'm not entirely sure when we're going to get Castlevania Season 3, but we'll get it sometime in 2019. And I guess we'll do this again when it comes out. What do you think?
Okay.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, if it gets another crappy movie off the schedule, I'm down.
No.
Incidentally, sincere thank you to whoever scheduled the release date of Punisher Season 2. Because you got me away from... And I would not have watched this anyway, by the way. I just wouldn't have seen the Lego Movie 2.
Well, Jason Teasy was ready to take that spot, but I've decided to not do as much animation going forward. I don't find that... So for some odd reason, I say that, and one of our more popular episodes recently was The Grinch.
Which is weird, because we just agreed about everything, essentially.
Yeah, fuck me running. I don't know why. I don't know why everyone's just like, let's see what they thought about this piece of shit. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
look, I can save you all a bunch of time about the Lego Movie Part 2. It's going to be really stupid. They're going to rehash a bunch of the same jokes that weren't funny to begin with, but will be less funny now. And the impetus for all of this in the real world will simply be the kid's sister stealing his toys. Because girls.
Let me add, I want to take my kids to these things. I'm going to take them to go see Into the Spider-Verse on Sunday, and I'll take them to Frozen 2. I just don't feel the need to talk about them. I don't, the occasional, something like Coco, which makes me ugly cry at the end, or, something that I can, that gives me, an urge to talk about it, sure. If there's something, if there's a kid show that a cartoon that I see, and I go like, hey, this, something like a Voltron or She-Ra, that there's an angle to it that I can talk about. Okay, I'm willing to do those things, but I'm just kind of over talking about Pixar and Pixar movies just to talk about them. They always.
I assume you mean Disney.
Yeah, Disney, Pixar, either one.
Because we always talk about Pixar movies because one of us is always ugly crying by the end of them. And we will be doing Toy Story 4, if for no other reason than because I want to be prepared to yell at everyone involved for not just ending the damn franchise on a perfect note.
But you just made my
the
point.
Best trilogy in film.
We're talking about Toy Story 4 because both of us are of the mind that they shouldn't have made a Toy Story 4, and that alone is reason enough to do the show. But, are either one of us really going to want to talk about Frozen 2? I mean, really.
I don't really like talking about the first one because I thought it sucked.
Ronnie, what do you make of all this? Do you think we should keep animation on the schedule, or should we, for the most part, ignore it?
I think you should keep certain ones on the schedule, and you all will know which ones those are.
Do you? Now, are you saying it? Are you being vague because you honestly don't know what's coming, and you're like, so I don't know what to tell them to keep, or
yeah?
Okay.
Well, it's not so much being vague as it's just total trust in what y'all will pick. I mean, you don't have to do Frozen 2, mainly because Frozen 2 seems like it would be an abomination.
Hashtag give Elsa a girlfriend.
You're doing a sequel to a movie that...
Honestly...
you said it, like, Mark, you have a more balanced opinion of that movie than I do, and your response was just, well, it's a good musical, but a terrible movie.
Yeah.
My response is, no, everything about this pretty much sucks.
Yeah, I've never seen Frozen. I feel like I know all the songs because they are everywhere you go in the world. And I went to Disney World after Frozen came out, so... Elsa was everywhere. So I don't feel the need to really watch that. Don't feel the need to watch it because I don't have children. And, there are certain movies animated movies that I will watch, sans children. I went to see the Lego movie and quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'll enjoy the Lego movie too. But I also don't want to get in. I also don't want to get into the screaming match with him over it either, which is what that show will end up being. Like, there are certain look, when we got into a screaming match over Ant-Man and the Wasp, which completely fucking took me by surprise.
No, we did not get into a screaming match. We had a more intense discussion than usual. We didn't yell at each other. We have yelled at each other in the past. That one, not on that one.
My point here, I have the 2019 films up real quick. So let me just run through these, really, really quick here. The Lego movie, you don't want to see it, and I don't feel like talking about it. I'll enjoy it with my kids, and I'll promptly forget about it. How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. My son can't wait to go see it. I have no desire to talk about this movie. I have no desire to talk about this franchise. It kind of is what it is.
I defer to you on that one. Again, when you mentioned it wasn't, I was surprised simply because I felt it met the criteria that you've thrown in my face on occasion about various movies that you
thrown in your. I like how you put that. The one that you beat me over the head with.
It is one of your favorite truncheons.
Well, let's see. What are we doing that week instead? Let's see. Why did I decide not to do this? Okay.
You just decided not to.
Because I scheduled Black Mirror in its place. See, I need to play. That's the problem. I need spots for television shows, and by that point, Black Mirror will have come out, and I needed a spot for it. So I would rather I'd rather talk about Black Mirror with Jesse than How to Train Your Dragon with you. Quite frankly.
Hey, I don't blame you. I'd rather talk about Black Mirror Season 3 with Jesse than talk about How to Train Your Dragon with you.
It's Season 5. Let's move on.
Whatever.
Okay, Wonder Park didn't make the... my kids want to see that one, but Wonder Park's not making the list because I'm on a cruise that week. So there's no time.
Well, I was not aware that was a thing.
Here's the deal, though. As with animated stuff, and unless it's like an epic... franchise like Toy Story, there's really no reason to do any of these sequels, like the How to Train Your Dragon, Lego movie, stuff like that. There is an honest to goodness reaction from you all for Toy Story 4, so yeah, absolutely, you need to talk about that. But nobody really cares what y'all have to say about How to Train Your Dragon 19.
Oh, nobody cares what we have to say anyway. We do this to amuse ourselves.
Oh, plenty of people had to care what we said about the Grinch, apparently. Ugly Dolls. I think you threatened to walk off the show forever if we did that one. Somebody threatened me.
I did not threaten to walk off the show forever.
I don't care about Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 4 or whatever whatever number they're on. I do care what you all have to say about Toy Story. As far as anime goes, even down to Castlevania, things like that.
I will say this. People have said that our Long Road to Ruin on Toy Story was one of the best shows we did. So that also is, kind of sets the precedent for wanting to talk about it. But I mean, Ugly Dolls, that's the Trolls of 2019. I'm not talking about that. I'm not even going to go see it. I've already told my kids want to go see that when I looked at my wife and said, "You're on your fucking own." Lots of luck.
Parenting is about sharing and choosing your battles. I will die on this hill. I will not go see this movie.
Wasn't there a Trolls movie or a Trolls show?
Probably.
Okay, The Secret Life of Pets 2 got nixed from the schedule because it's the same fucking week as Dark Phoenix. And I'm sorry, X-Men movie takes precedent. So that one got kicked off the story.
No. So that movie's not coming out. Look, on the plus side, when it gets moved again or postponed or canceled, we will have something in its place at least.
All right, so Toy Story 4, fine. We already talked about that. Wish Dragon. I don't even know what that is, but it's a Sony cartoon, so it'll be mostly fart jokes
and terrible.
Hey, you know what you got out of, because it's the same week as New Mutants and Hobbs and Shaw? You got out of the live-action Dora the Explorer.
It never.
Oh, that was on the schedule until the fucking New Mutants moved into that time.
No. That was never on the schedule.
Sure it was. It was on my schedule.
I would rather slit my wrists.
Okay, Angry Birds Movie 2. Again. I'll go see that one with my kids. We'll all have a laugh, and I'll never have to talk about it again.
You'll have a laugh?
I thought the first one was funny. So does my son.
Hang on. I got one laugh out of the first one. The obscenely long whiz that eagle takes into the pond while they're all kind of bathing in it. Because it just doesn't stop.
Oh my god, you know who's in the sequel? Aquafina.
I don't know who that is, nor do I care.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Let's move on. There's some Asian chick who's apparently popular on YouTube. His name is Aquafina. Is now getting movie parts. I kicked Abominable off the schedule because again I needed the spot. That's That's DreamWorks. Let's see. There's not a single animated film in. Oh no, wait. The Addams Family. But that's the same week as Zombieland 2. So forget it. Sonic the Hedgehog was originally on the schedule, but then Kingsman got moved to the same week as Sonic the Hedgehog, so that's gone now.
I'm not watching Kingsman. Get banned.
Somebody else will do that. Yes, you are. You're not using your get out of jail free card on the fucking Kingsman. Get the fuck out of here.
I have not seen any of those movies, and I am better off for it.
Whatever.
You don't know that because you haven't seen them.
I absolutely know for sure.
Then there's Frozen 2 again. When I was doing the schedule and changing
Frozen
things
2
around.
subtitled "We Love Money."
It's hashtag Give Elsa a Girlfriend. Which might be the only reason to talk about this.
There is no.
Okay. Tell you what, if they go that direction, we can do a podcast just so we can yell about that. We can be the angry old men. Well, we won't even call it anything but angry old men on a porch.
So we'll not
just complain about that.
The whole show is angry old men scream about Frozen 2. All right, and then we get to December, and there's no animated movies in December. I mean, unless you count Star Wars.
I mean, kind of, but it still won't get you to take it off the schedule, so there's no point arguing it.
I'm going to have to take
also,
my daughter
seriously, no. Why is Kingsman on the schedule? We haven't done any of the others.
Because we're doing a Long Road to Ruin on the first two, that's why.
So go ahead and do that. Don't make me suffer.
The subtitle of Damn You Hollywood is Winfrey Must Suffer.
Yeah, there's plenty of other movies next year I'm going to have to suffer through.
Look, keep this shit up, and I'll
main character back.
Okay, fine. I'll tell you what. You know what? You want to play it? You want to play that way? I'll take Kingsman completely off the schedule. I'll wipe that a whole week. We're doing Charlie's Angels instead.
Oh, god damn it!
You want to take it back? Want to go you sure you don't want to do Kingsman?
Hang on, there's got to be something else that weekend. There's got to be something else.
You know, I'm sitting here and I'm listening, and it's almost, I feel like Daddy slapped Mommy at the dinner table right now.
You'll want another 5 across the eyes.
I'm just like, I don't know who to go with on the weekends right now, Winfrey or Mark. I wish you all would stop. You're ruining my birthday.
All right, I think that's as good a reason as any to say, let's move on.
I'm going to find something. Okay, hang on. To the unpaid intern listening to these shows.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
If you have anything, move something of relevance to that weekend.
That's a busy weekend, dude. Because you know what else is... Well, if you're talking about, like, the weekend of November 8th, you have Sonic the Hedgehog, Kingsman, The Great Game, and then Midway, which is a war drama of some sort.
They're remaking the Battle of Midway. Okay, let's talk about that.
Nope, this has Mandy Moore in it. Okay, you got to hear this cast. This is being directed by Roland Emmerich. Okay, sure.
Okay, no, that's all. That's all. That's literally all you need to say.
Hang on, I have to read this cast list to you because it's so good.
Okay.
Okay, so it's directed by Roland Emmerich. It stars Woody Harrelson, Luke Evans, Mandy Moore, Patrick Wilson, Ed Skrein, Aaron Eckhart, Nick Jonas, sir, Tadanabu Asano, and Dennis Quaid.
See, I like most of those actors.
Oh, God, I am so torn because that's going to be such a train wreck.
We're doing the Kingsman. Shut the fuck up.
I'd rather do Sonic the Hedgehog.
Hey,
start. So we're upsetting Ronnie. Let's move on.
I'm just saying. I'd rather do Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
Winfrey, there is a lot wrong with you if you want to do Sonic the Hedgehog over Kingsman. Why are we talking about this? We have talked more about this than we did the actual Castlevania series.
Yeah, welcome to our review shows.
All right. With that said,
wait, hold on. You're gonna try and sell me on Kingsman as a franchise.
There were 2 previous movies. What the fuck else does franchise mean?
No. Sell me as to. I have seen none of them. You want to try and sell me on these things being of value?
Well, it's based on a comic. Okay, we know what my criteria is for doing movies in the first place. It's based on a comic book. Ding. Source material. There were 2 other movies. Ding. Long Road to Ruin. All it has to have is a fucking metal soundtrack, and I've got an entire week of shows.
Haven't you learned your lesson about booking weeks around shows yet?
I have not.
I thought you were doing that.
I cut back on doing them. I haven't cut them out entirely.
Yeah, there's your problem.
All right. Next week, if you've enjoyed this lively discussion, there's more to come. As next week, the source material will have Alexis Haina on to discuss Batwoman Elegy, which was Detective Comics 854 through 860. Pat Mullen is going to come on a TV Party tonight and discuss why Elseworld sucked, which was the Arrowverse crossover.
I've heard very this seems to be a very divisive event in whatever the.
It started off good and then it went off a fucking cliff.
Okay. I was curious as to your take on it because I've seen people going like, "Oh, my mind was blown. This is going to be so great," and then I heard like you and Pat go, "Okay, so they're going with the Anti-Monitor for this one, and then they're actually doing Crisis next year." Okay.
Well, exactly what I said was like the Flash episode was really good, and for those people who watch Smallville, there was like an ode to that, and so there was a lot packed in there for longtime fans of the CW DC universe. The second episode with Arrow and Batwoman, I don't want to give away the whole show here, but there was so much marketing for the debut of Batwoman, Ruby Rose's Batwoman, and going to Gotham and everything, and the show just felt disjointed. I'll talk more about it on Tuesday, but best way to describe it is they set you up to believe they were going to hit a home run, and they threw the bat. It hit a kid in the front row. The game was called.
They set up for the home run. Instead, the guy at the plate threw the bat into the crowd and then charged the pitcher's mound.
The problem the problem is like it was so easy to hit a home run with this. They literally lobbed the ball. It was one of those Bugs Bunny slow motion deals. Unfortunately, it was one of those Bugs Bunny slow motion deals where everyone fucking strikes out and then smashes the bat. So anyway, next week is our Metal Hammer of Doom Christmas show. We'll be looking at Tarja, her Christmas album from 2017. The week of actual Christmas, we're only doing 2 shows. At least that'll be live. We're going to be debuting.
Yeah, but one of them's ours.
Yep. We're looking at Source Material, Aquaman, Volume 2, The Others from the New 52 era. And then the day after Christmas, on the 26th of December, we'll be reviewing Jason Momoa's Aquaman with Alexis Hana, who is Hotsy Totsy for Jason Momoa, by the way.
Look, hold on. Any heterosexual woman has a thing for Jason Momoa, okay? He's an attractive man.
Mm.
That doesn't change the fact that his movie is going to suck.
We'll see. So far, it's getting gangbuster reviews.
No, it's
and
not.
Making all kinds of money.
Okay, hold on. You said 2 things, one of which is true, one of which is not.
No, it's
making money.
It's currently fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, so at least
barely. It's last I checked, it was what, just above 75%.
Well, okay, maybe because last I checked, it was 78%. Anyway, that's the same.
Just above 75, which is actually kind of the death zone for blockbusters. If you're in that 60 to 75, if you're in that range, you're not a very good movie, but people are giving you positive reviews.
Yeah, well, that same day, I will be getting my CAT scan and labs done at the Moffitt Cancer Center. So that show's either going to be really fun because I'll be in a great mood, or I have cancer again, and that show's going to suck because I'll be depressed. How about that?
Tell you what, if you have cancer again, how about we just don't do the show?
No, I'm doing it despite... fuck cancer. I'll review Aquaman anyway. That's how you beat cancer.
But how about if I get cancer? Can we then not do the show?
Jeez, Winfrey, God!
Way to step in front of that train, buddy.
I have no desire. Again, I have no desire to see or talk about this movie, really. But if I'm going to see it, I'm damn well going to talk about how bad it is.
All right, and then of course New Year's. God, what if I get cancer? I'm going to be laughing about that all night. Anywho,
hey, I'm just saying, if that comes up, can I then get out of these terrible movies?
I'll tell you what, if you get a life-threatening disease that's incurable, you can get out of reviewing these movies, sure.
How about a life-threatening disease that is curable, but my treatment runs over the course of that week?
No. Really?
So if I get cholera...
In the show!
Hey, Ronnie, how was the podcast? It was fucking weird, dude.
Watching domestic violence.
I've already compared you all to that.
And New Year's week, of course, it'll be Winfrey's favorite week. We'll be doing the Bumblebee prequel comic on Source Material on New Year's Eve. On New Year's Day, we start the year off right. 2019 gets started on the right foot as we review on Damn You Hollywood, the Bumblebee movie.
I'm trying very hard not to take that as an omen about 2019. I really am.
The Metal Hammer of Doom does their year-end special on January 2nd. And on January 3rd, Alexis Hana, our VIP of late, will be on TV Party Tonight to discuss She-Ra, Princess of Power, the new Netflix show, and Love Letter to the LGBTQ community. We'll talk about that and hopefully not devolve into a scheduled cast the way we have tonight. Ronnie, go ahead and plug your show.
I forgot what it is now. I have a show, and it's called Screaming Boy Podcast, where it is a nerd culture / pop culture podcast. We are doing a lot of network exclusives right now because we have not put out actual new shows on, but we will soon, very soon. Everybody's like, I know you keep saying that, but not that really anybody cares, but I like to think they do. But probably after the first year, we're going to be back to regular schedule. But for now, you can go on right here on the network and listen to one of our network exclusives, the Rise and Fall of, the Life and Death of Toys R Us, the Rise and Fall of Bill Cosby, the celebrating Stan Lee. We've done a lot of good stuff on here. Please give it a listen. You can go on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeart, anywhere you can get a podcast and find all of our old shows. They're a lot of fun. Please go on there and subscribe. Give us a like. Give us a like on social media. You can just look up Screaming Boy Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and Screaming Boy PR on Twitter.
All right, Winfrey, go ahead and do your thing.
All right, last Sunday, Jeff Harris and I had a review of UFC 232. 231. Great main event. Absolutely brilliant performance by Max Holloway. Look it up. Holloway and Ortega's second best fight of the year so far. The rest of the card, a little bit meh. Some decent stuff. There was one of the better street fights you'll ever see between Thiago Santos and Jimmy Manuwa. Shevchenko and Jędrzejczyk was a relatively interesting fight. Not a barn burner, but I was, interested more than entertained. Most of the prelims sucked. So we talk about all that. We do a preview of the last UFC on Fox card. The UFC on Fox's deal is expiring. This is it. The last one. They're moving to ESPN in January. Let us all shed a tear for what might have been for the Fox deal, which had some ups, had some downs, and just generally underwhelmed. It's headlined by Kevin Lee and Ally Quinta. That is not the fight I'm most looking forward to on that card. That would be Edson Barboza and Dan Hooker, because I am a fan of violence. So that'll be a lot of fun. Oh yeah, that starts earlier because they're on Fox. Okay, mentally rearranging my Saturday schedule is all. So I will have coverage of that event this Saturday in the MMA Zone of 411mania.com. So say hello, stop by, always appreciated. And then this upcoming Sunday, we'll have a review of that event, and that's it, because UFC 232 doesn't happen until December 29th. So we will only have a very short show on the 16th, and then on the 23rd, we will preview 232, which is... That's a card, man. Those top two fights. John Jones is back, and we're getting the rematch between him and Alexander Gustafsson, which is, in my estimation, the best light heavyweight fight ever. We have Cyborg and Nunes. Chad Mendez is fighting Alexander Volkanovski, which I'm really looking forward to, actually. Okay, there's a few. BJ Penn's fighting. Fighting, in air quotes. I mean, he's back at lightweight, at least. He's not turning himself into a corpse to make 145. So... You can tune in for a full preview of that in 2 weeks. Until then, yeah, y'all get to have me suffer the day after Christmas.
I can't think of a better
Mark and I have
Christmas
to
present.
review. As Mark and I will be reviewing Aquabro, dude. Aquabro chases the redhead. Yay!
I can't think of a better Christmas present for myself than making you suffer reviewing both Aquaman and Bumblebee in subsequent weeks.
I mean, I like things,
You do realize that whatever life energy you gain by doing this to me is actually what gave you cancer, right?
See how he
Good night, folks.
See how he abuses me, Ronnie? I don't even know why I put up with it.
I'm horribly uncomfortable.
No, this is the point when Ronnie realizes we deserve each other and just washes his hands of the whole situation.
That was within the first 5 minutes, Winfrey.
All right. Before one of us makes yet another terrible cancer joke, be well, be safe, and behave.
Got to get
Alexa, play Whitney Houston.
Okay.
With Amazon Music, a voice is all you need. Get access to over 50 million songs. Download the Amazon Music app today.
I wanna feel the heat with somebody. Yeah, I wanna dance with somebody. With somebody who loves me. Ooh, ooh.
Alexa, play Whitney Houston.
Okay.
With Amazon Music, a voice is all you need. Get access to over 50 million songs. Download the Amazon Music app today.